Welcome to The Whole Pack, where we challenge black and white thinking and holistic pet care and dive into the controversial topics everyone's thinking about but nobody's saying out loud. I'm Sunny Gandara.
And I'm Melissa Sherman, and we are two holistic pet health practitioners here to prove that holistic care can include critical thinking, self-care, and yes, even Western medicine when needed. This is a judgment-free community we wish we'd had when we started our journey. Hello, and welcome to the Whole Pack podcast. I'm Melissa Sherman.
And I'm Sunny Gandara.
And we are so excited to be here. This is our first episode, and we found a need for this. We had started new businesses in this wonderful space to support animals, but there was just so much confusion, so much division that we became overwhelmed. But we found each other, we started having conversations, and we wanted to just help people kind of cut through that noise, find community, find each other, be able to have conversations without the extremism that we were finding, without the division that we were finding. Just be able to make decisions, because one of the first things that we learned as holistic practitioners is to look at the animal in front of you. And a lot of the stuff that we see is this is the right way, this is the wrong way, and there's no in between. So creating this space brings us back to our teaching, brings us back to our heart, and it just helps us show up for those animals.
And that's a really good thing, right? Because the holistic pet health world can be so polarizing. You're either all in on one approach or you're the enemy. And we don't believe that serves animals or pet professionals or people who love their pets. So this is really a passionate project of ours, and we hope you will come join us. We're really excited about this.
So this is our first episode, and we thought it would be good for you to get to know us a little bit, where we came from. We weren't always in this space, so just knowing where we came from and where we're hoping to go, we're really excited and hope you will start listening and joining in on the conversation. So I'm going to start by asking my dear friend Sunny some questions. Before you were doing holistic pet health, your background was actually in a totally different world, right? I mean, it's very different. Can you
Yeah.
share a little bit about that?
Yeah, much like so many others who enter this field, right? I spent over 20 years as a chef and a wine professional in the hospitality industry. I worked in fine dining in New York City, and I had my own catering company, which was an incredible experience. My culinary journey was actually deeply rooted in my Norwegian heritage. I grew up with these traditional Scandinavian food philosophies, right? A lot of preservation techniques, fermentation, using what was seasonal and available. I eventually started a plant-based blog called Arctic Grub, which I'm still running, and where I explore how those Nordic traditions can translate into modern health-focused cooking, if you will. So food has always been my language for caring, whether it was nourishing my catering guests or my own family. And I just never imagined that that same philosophy would eventually become how I'd help animals as well.
So, what happened that made you change career paths? Like, how did you go from that to this?
Mm. You know, I've shared this story on my own channels, but my soul dog, Nacho, was what happened. He was diagnosed with hemangiosarcoma at the age of 6, so very young, and losing him early just absolutely shattered me. But it also woke me up in many ways. When he got sick, I realized I had spent my entire career understanding how food affects human health, the power of ingredients, how nutrition supports or undermines the body. And even though he was raw fed, I had never really applied any of that thinking to my dogs. So I was just doing what everyone else did, following conventional advice without question. And suddenly I was facing this aggressive cancer, and I felt completely hopeless and helpless also. But that grief turned into a lot of like, what ifs, what if I'd known more? What if I fed him differently? Or what if I didn't give him that flea and tick medication? And, I know that couldn't bring Nacho back, but I could make sure that other dogs didn't have to go through what he did. And that's what sparked this new career change.
So, for you, how did you start building your knowledge? Like, where did you start bridging that gap to help support Nacho and these new things that you're discovering? Because I can see being a chef and having all this culinary experience, how naturally it would click and make sense that food is
Mm.
a foundational part of who they are.
Yes, I went all in as I always do. I got certified as a canine holistic pet health coach, which is where we met through Dr. Ruth Roberts. I went on to become a professionally certified canine nutritionist, but honestly, the learning never stops, right? So right now I'm deep into traditional Chinese veterinary medicine and food therapy. I'm studying herbalism for humans and canines and even animal Reiki, where we were in the same program together. So, what really clicked for me, I think, is realizing that my culinary background wasn't something that I had to leave behind because I love food and wine too. Wine isn't very applicable to canines, but it just sort of became my superpower, understanding food energetics, knowing how to balance flavors and properties. I've always loved that, having that sort of hands-on experience with ingredients. And it all translated. I started developing now what I call parallel nutrition, which is creating meals that benefit both humans and dogs with, of course, species appropriate adjustments. Because so often I hear, oh, I don't have time to cook for my dog. It's either for me, my husband, or the dog. So this is like really a beautiful bridge between my two worlds, if you will. Also, hopefully, it will help pet parents find some time to create some delicious meals for their
Yeah.
companions as well.
You certainly inspired me. I love watching you cook. I mean, you're very inspiring on the human side as well as the dog side. So when you started learning everything, did you feel empowered or did you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or maybe a mix of both?
Both, honestly. It was really overwhelming at first. And I know you know how I feel too, because the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know and how much conventional veterinary education leaves out, and especially around nutrition, right? I mean, it's not the vet's fault. They just don't get that much training there in that area. But then when you start exploring these holistic approaches like TCVM, herbalism, and there's this whole new world that opens up, right? And there's so much information. And to be honest, a lot of it contradicts itself depending on who you're learning from too. So that can be overwhelming. But as I got deeper into it, the overwhelm shifted into empowerment. And I started seeing results, like real results, right? Not just with my own dogs, with my clients, have dogs with chronic conditions that conventional medicine just wasn't able to solve. They were thriving once we addressed nutrition, right? And took a whole body approach, if you will. And that's when it clicked, like, this is exactly what I meant to do.
Yeah.
Taking something complex and making it accessible and not so complex. Being a bridge between these two worlds has been really empowering.
So what keeps you doing this work now?
Definitely my own dogs. Tofu, I have a 9.5-year-old Cane Corso, and I have a 1-year-old Borbal, Oslo, my puppy, 160-pound puppy. And they're both a huge part of my inspiration. Every day I get to apply everything I know and have learned to keep them healthy and thriving. They're my constant reminders of why this work matters. It's really about prevention, not just reaction. But it's also, of course, the families I get to help. Every time a client tells me their dog's doing better, or a vet reaches out wanting to collaborate, like I collaborate with Dr. Michelle at Full Circle Veterinary Hospital. It's a vet hospital close to me here in New York. It just reinforces that we're building something bigger than just individual cases. We're really changing the conversation around pet health. My fellow pet professionals, when I see how much passion and hard work they put into it and their true love for animals, that just inspires me to know, and it makes me jump out of bed every morning. So, and now, of course, with this podcast, we get to expand that conversation even further, bringing more voices in, showing people that holistic doesn't mean rejecting conventional care, right? It means like enhancing it. And I think that we agree somehow there, just creating that truly integrative approach, if you will. And that's what keeps me going too. And not just started this journey, but now it's about every dog that comes after him.
It's really inspiring. And just truly that collaboration piece. I mean, you're such a great example of what collaborating with the veterinarians and with other health professionals, what that actually looks like. So I really appreciate you sharing that because your story is very inspiring, Sunny.
Well, thank you so much. And so is yours, which is why I want to turn the limelight on you now. Enough about me. So I know that you also had a very different background. So can you share a little bit about yours before you starting doing this amazing work you're now doing with animals?
Yes. So I worked in financial services for a little over 20 years. I started out in Manhattan on Wall Street. I was in my 20s. But, I had in my teens, I really wanted to be a veterinarian and it just didn't work out. So I kind
Mm.
of just picked something out of a book, like, I'm just going to do business. This seems reliable, right? So I spent my career in something where it didn't really feel aligned, but it paid my bills. And
Mm.
there was just always something in the back of my mind that was like, I got to do something else. But I never truly believed that I could. I didn't know working with animals was an option. It was just always a passion, a hobby of mine.
Mm.
So the 20-year career thankfully came to an end, and that's how I got here.
I know, and the way that you work with animals is really unique, and you've certainly helped me with my animals. I know you've helped a lot of different, other of our fellow colleagues with theirs, but working with energy has been a huge part of your life for a long time. And how did that come about? How were you attracted to that particular modality?
So I've always kind of dabbled, again, just for fun, cards, crystals, energy. I thought it was a gift I didn't have, but the reality is I just truly didn't explore it. In around 2009, I had my first Reiki session. It was the first time that I had a lot of anxiety. I was in a job I didn't love, and it was very conflicting for who I was ethically. I went to this Reiki session and it was the first time I felt quiet. I felt like I was floating and it was amazing. And I had to learn it. And again, I learned it for myself and to do with myself, with my own animals. And just everything I learned along the way was for that. Just exploring things. But again, this is just something I have on the backside, but this is my career and this is my job. So I never really looked at anything professionally. It was more just tools for my own self care.
Mm. I think so many people can relate to that. They don't think they can make what they truly love a career, but you actually went ahead and did that. And so, of course, animals played a big role in shaping your path. I know you have a big sanctuary where you're living with so many different animals, not just cats and dogs, but I would like to know, because of your wide and vast experience with animals, was there an experience that really changed how you thought about animal health and maybe what you were doing to what you could do better or different?
Yeah, so there's actually two. I had a cat named Jolie. She had hyperthyroidism. I was feeding her a kibble diet. I just didn't know any better. This was very early on. People didn't really talk about nutrition. She was even given a prescription diet. I saw her health was declining. She was losing a lot of weight. Thankfully, I was in New York, so I was able to find a holistic veterinarian. It was really more of an accident, a very lucky accident that I found a holistic veterinarian. A veterinarian did teach me about proper nutrition for cats, species appropriate diet for a cat. So that shifted my whole lens. When the medication for her, the pharmaceuticals stopped working, I found a homeopathy veterinarian again. So now I'm going even deeper into this and seeing when I was told she should be euthanized because it's cruel to keep her alive, the medicine's not working, there's nothing we can do. I was given an option from somebody else. I saw her just start to come back into her body. I saw her life come back. She became vibrant. She lived for 4 more years, happy.
Amazing.
And then I had a dog named Denny, same thing. He was neutered at 10 weeks old. I have three dogs that were neutered at 10 weeks old, but Denny was the first one because he came from a rescue. He was on antibiotics for the first 6 months of his life until I said, we have to stop. And at this point, I was living in Florida. There was not a holistic veterinarian or integrative veterinarian in sight. I really felt on my own. And they were
Mm.
just like, well, if he lives to be a year, you're lucky. Again, there is no way I was taking that as an answer. And that's thankfully at that time there were communities, there were things I could dive into on the internet. I mean, Dogs Naturally, I took every one of their courses to figure out what can I do to help him
Yeah.
nutrition wise, herb wise. I mean, Rita Hogan, I took her course over there. And it's just like all these little things kind of came together and I helped him. He's
Mm,
vibrant. There's still some little issues here and there, but I'm not fixing him anymore. He's going to be 10 years old this year. So it's just
wow.
incredible, these little tools and help along the way when you're told conventional medicine can no longer help you. So that's it.
Yeah.
That is
And
not it. And the inspiration behind that is there's always something you can do to help them feel comfortable. You may not be curing a disease, but you're helping their body heal and you're helping their body stay comfortable.
I so relate to all of that. There's always something you can do. And I think we've both been in a situation where we've been told there's nothing you can do, and we don't accept that. And for right reason, because there is always something you can do to make your animal more comfortable. Those are some incredible stories. And I know that that really has shaped you into doing the work that you do now. But so going from corporate to what made you decide, like, okay, this isn't just like a side hobby that I love anymore. Like, this is something I want to offer full time, because I think that people that are listening are maybe relating, be like, I kind of want to do this too, but I don't know how. What was that sort of final, yes, I'm doing this?
Honestly, it was the animal communication piece where it became at some point while studying that to do it professionally, and I'm doing air quotes because at that point I still was like, no, this isn't something I can do. It's like, I'm going to do it for my dog Cooper. I just want to know he's a senior. Everything had this excuse and this kind of footnote of this is just for personal use. There was just something when I was doing my case studies for animal communication and just hearing these animals and bringing in their perspective and being able to help that guardian shift. I was able to take a step back at some point and say, I can do this. I see a
Mm.
path forward where I didn't see a path forward before. And oh my gosh, I have a whole trunk of tools. And it's not just animal communication, it's not just Reiki, it's not just herbs. I have
Yes.
this whole thing where I can look at a whole cat, a whole dog, and really, I was miserable and my own health was suffering in my career. And I was at a point where I had to make a decision and I just kind of leaped and I just went for it because it was like, well, and knowing my own health, if I can't take care of myself, who is going to take care of the sanctuary I have, right? So it was important to take care of myself. And when I had that time off, I was able to see clearer, see a path forward, get out of those beliefs because I think that's the hardest part when you have a career and you get a biweekly check and you have insurance. How do you get out of that? I mean, how do you
Mhm.
get out of that when you're paying your bills with that? It's a real thing. So being able to I don't want to say like I bypass those beliefs or I dismiss them. They're very real, but being
Yeah.
able to talk to myself like, okay, I'm going to change these beliefs. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this. So there was a will to do this, but I've been fooling myself my whole life that I wasn't meant to work with animals. So the moment I was able to accept that, everything just starts to like fall into place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am so glad you did, because otherwise we wouldn't have met. And the animals need your important work. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I feel like that's why we call it the whole pack, because it is really the whole. And your work is so important in the health of animals as well. It's not just about nutrition and herbs, like you said, it's the whole thing. And we also need the whole community to gather around and basically remember why we're doing this, because making a leap like that isn't easy. So we're not making it sound
Right,
like, yeah, just quit your job and start doing this, because it is
right.
challenging. And we are going to share that in this podcast. On the episodes, we're going to support pet professionals who may feel alone, who may feel like, I don't know what to do next. How do I get more clients? How do I talk to pet parents the best way? All of that stuff we're going to talk about. But for now, we want to wrap this episode up because we want to keep it short and sweet. Just a quick introduction about who we are, what this podcast is about. I also wanted to give a quick little teaser about episode 2, which is going to be called Bio Individuality in Pet Care. and why we're talking about why cookie cutter protocols, even holistic ones, can do more harm than good. So with that, Melissa, how are you feeling after our first episode?
I'm really excited. I can't wait. I really enjoy these conversations with you and other professionals as well. It's just such a big learning experience, and to be able to learn from someone else's perspective too. I'm really looking forward to this.
Same thing. This is a conversation. We may stutter and stumble, but that's okay. We're doing this because we want to share what we think, and there is a space for everybody that wants to share what they have on their hearts and in their minds. So we want to thank you so much for being here for our first episode, and we'll see you next time on The Whole Pack.
Thank you.
Before we go, we want to remind you that the information shared on The Whole Pack is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace veterinary medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with your veterinarian before making any changes to your pet's diet, supplements, or healthcare routine. Every animal is unique, and what works for one may not be appropriate for another. We're here to empower you with knowledge, but your vet is your partner in your pet's individual care.